Hi, welcome to another edition of 1 in 15. As ever, I'm going to get my guests to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Ashley House. I'm a sports and business TV presenter, and I've known Andy for a long time, but not in a professional capacity.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ash. It's really great to have you today. As you know, I've been asking people to think about the one big thing that's been dominating their thinking, particularly at this time. What's your one big thing?
Do you know what? When the whole lockdown thing started, the one thing that I was really concerned about was mental health.
Yeah.
And I've been concerned about mental health for a long time, for personal reasons and also for societal reasons. And then as soon as this lockdown thing happened, it quite quickly occurred to me that we could have a really serious mental health crisis in the UK and worldwide, actually,
Sure.
because people are shut up and locked up, and so many people have positive influences on their own mental health just by seeing other people, all of us really. And it began to really worry me quite early on, even before the seriousness of the situation really became apparent. As lockdown's gone on, I think I've got more and more worried about that.
Yeah.
And then that's also become quite a personal thing as well. So I've become a bit worried about my own mental health and mental health of the people I live with,
Yeah.
and my family. And so I think from the very start, my initial concern was mental health of the country as a whole.
Yeah.
And as I dug down into that more and more, like really bad things came to mind. So whether it's people in abusive relationships, whether it's like manic depressive people, whether it's people who have drug problems, or even like sex workers. There are so many sectors of society with enormous possibilities and potential for negative mental health
Sure.
effects. And I think as lockdowns continued, I haven't started to feel any better about that, whether that be on a very micro level for me personally, or from an intermediate level on sort of my friends and family, or even on a national or international level. So that's probably my big thing at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean that counts as a big thing, and you're not alone. There's no comfort, but you're not alone in thinking of that. As you probably know, one of my areas of specialism, I guess, as a coach, is on well-being and mental fitness, kind of mental health issues, and I've got my own history of negative mental health episodes as well. It has been really interesting, I think, that kind of reflection on how external things affect our inner well-being. So obviously this, pandemic that none of us have experienced anything like it before, and it has a huge impact in ways that we're kind of prepared for, and ways that we can't possibly be prepared for. So what are some things that you've noticed in that? What do you think are some of the pressure points for that, for you or for people that you're aware of?
Well, obviously everybody's different, but even this morning, my gym's reopened, so I went to the gym this morning for the first time in goodness knows how long. And as I got out of the car, I suddenly realised that I haven't had a hug for like 6 months, maybe. Mm-hmm. Literally, I haven't had a hug, apart from my daughter, which is lovely, but it doesn't really count. And that's just a super weird thing. And so all of us get not just our self-value, but or self-worth, but even kind of, for a lot of us, getting through the day, is sometimes quite hard. Yeah. So, and I know for me, meeting up with other people who have kids and, other people who might share similar interests to me, even if I'm probably an extrovert, but I'm someone who thrives and I feel healthy when I'm talking to people, even if I don't know them at all. So I do go to the pub quite a lot, and I go to the pub just because I love like talking to random people or people that I hardly know, who aren't going to judge me particularly, that kind of stuff. So that I get a lot from that. And so that's completely gone for me. I work in sport. Yep. So if I were to be the kind of person who gets any self-worth from their occupation and their career, that's all gone at the same time as well. Yeah. I don't think it's any secret to say that although it's easy to say, hasn't it been wonderful being able to be at home with your family so much more? That brings its own stresses too. Sure. So that's certainly hit me. So those things, and as I started this with, physical contact, I'm a very sort of touchy person. Yeah. And so I sort of need physical contact to feel like I'm human.
Sure.
And I haven't had any of those things for 6 months. And I'm obviously not the only person in the world who like that. And while that's very hard for me, from friends and family of different ages, my parents are in their 70s. They haven't been able to see their granddaughter very much, only obviously on screens. And then, like I said at the very beginning, really on a wider level, I just have I have so many deep fears for people who were maybe not that happy beforehand, or who
Yeah.
had, you know, various mental problems beforehand, and they've been shut in a flat, maybe with no garden, no outside space. They haven't seen anyone. You know, there's a residential home just down the end of my road with lots of old people in it. You know, and I stop and sit, used to talk to them from the other side of the road whenever I see them, of course. You know, but they wouldn't have had that. And a really good example, actually, if I can just carry on just for a second. My grandma, who's 97, is an extraordinary woman. She's one of the most extraordinary people you'd ever meet. She's a Jewish lady from Poland. They escaped the pogroms in Poland and moved to Egypt. She spoke 7 languages by the time she was 20. She was pretty much the most famous concert pianist in her generation. She's an amazing woman, and she still teaches now. Her mind is completely there. Her body's obviously not quite as strong as it used to be. But in 3 months between March and the end of May, the deterioration I saw in my grandmother was extraordinary.
Yeah.
She didn't have COVID. She didn't have any huge physical problems, but she is like me, thrives on seeing people, chatting, you know, boring people with her stories, listening to people. And it's not just about talking. That's really important. It's about, I'm someone who I don't even particularly like talking, although this may not be obvious right now. I actually just love listening to people. Sure. And my grandma's the same. And in 3 months, her mental health went from, you know, pretty much as good as you could ever hope for in a 97-year-old to the point where now she just doesn't want to live anymore. And that's, you know, and I wouldn't want to either, to be honest. She's been shut in her flat and seen nobody for nearly 6 months.
Yeah, I get that. And I know other stories. I'm sure other people know similar stories where, because for me, one of the things about, you know, something like a pandemic is that, you know, that we can't control the things that help us, and we can't control as much as we want to the things that hinder us or hurt us. And for a lot of people, we may have had things that are helping our well-being, our mental health, our physical health, that we've not even been aware of, because maybe they were strategies that we adopted consciously a long time ago, but have become second nature. Like maybe one for you is going to the pub and hanging out with people, or it might be something that we've never consciously adopted, but it's been part of our practice, and that's why we've been well. One of the interesting things I've had conversations with is with people like myself who've had episodes of poor mental health, and that reflection of, you know, we are absolutely an at-risk category for decreased mental health in this current time, because if you've got poor mental health, obviously such external pressures can exacerbate that, can make it much, much worse. But in a weird way, some of the people who are kind of in a relatively good place, but know they've got mental health issues or potential problems, some of us feel a little bit better equipped in a weird way to deal with the external pressures, because we've had to consciously adopt strategies and practices. You know, like when I've been very ill, I've not always known, I've not always been able to make long-term plans, because I haven't known which version of me is going to wake up the next morning, you know, that kind of thing. And I've had conversations with colleagues in different areas who are looking at the people around them and thinking they're suffering from at least, you know, kind of undiagnosed, low level perhaps, but mental health issues that they've not normally seen them wrestling with. But these are people who would not in normal circumstances be, you know, considered mentally fit, I suppose.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's that interesting in the kind of issues that you're raising. We've got one set of people that, like you, I'm very worried about. People who are struggling in abusive relationships, having poverty of finance or other resources, you know, poor or struggling with their mental health, absolutely in a risk category. But then there's this other massive risk category as well, which is people who normally don't have to deal with it. You know, like their mental health problems might be feeling a bit low one day every now and again. You know, it's never going to get to the kind of diagnosed stage. But one of the reasons it's not getting to a diagnosed stage is because actually they've got good practice most of the time. They've got that daily commute perhaps, or they've got colleagues they chew the fat over with at work, or activities that they do. So I play five-a-side football once a week, and when I was really ill, that was absolutely, when I was at my worst, that was the one thing I left the house for, because it was the one thing I knew I needed. I'm not a particularly good football player, but I enjoy it. And we've just restarted that last week, and the conversations already I'm having with blokes who tend to be quite blokey, don't tend to talk about themselves that much, but you can really see how much that kind of 4 months off has affected them, not just physically. You know, we're all playing a little bit slower and a little bit more conscious of our but like that, you know, their mental energy as well, their mental capacity, their mental fitness has really been affected. Some of them have been working much harder because they've been going to work. Some of them have been on furlough. Some, you know, everyone's been dealing with different circumstances, as you say. It's really, really interesting. So with those concerns that we've got, and if I'm right, that there's at least 2 categories of kind of at-risk people, have you got any suggestions about what we could start doing individually or as a community?
Look, I think it's really tough because in addition to, I'm probably aware that we might even be running out of time, so I don't want to go down a whole new line. But just to come back on something you said in terms of looking forward, one of the other real problems is that normally there might be some hope in the distance. There might be something you can look forward to. At the moment, every sort of hope to do with this pandemic keeps getting taken away. You know, if you have it once, you won't get it again. Well, that's not true anymore. You know, they don't think. There might be a vaccine, yeah, but even if there is, actually, it may not last more than 6 months anyway. So that bit of hope's gone. You know, everything's going to be back to normal in August. Well, it isn't. You know, all those sorts of things. Plus, a lot of the reasons why people have bad mental health are exacerbated because lots of people don't have any money, lots of people are losing their jobs, lots of people can't do their exercise and so on. I think in terms of looking forward and trying to be slightly positive, things are getting a little bit back to normal. So on a very physiological level, you know, as I said just before, I went to the gym this morning, you played football, a tiny bit, you know, that the endorphins will start to work again. You know, unless you've been super disciplined in lockdown, endorphins have gone down for everybody, I think. In terms of on a macro scale, I struggle to see any hope yet. Not to say that, you know, the world's going to end, but at the same time, I think it's really difficult for us to see, apart from in a really long-term way, you know, how things are going to get better. Because not only do we not know what's going to happen with the virus, we also don't know what's going to happen with the economy. So I think things are going to be pretty tough for a while. It's hard to see positives. If there is a positive, it's that we're all more aware of it. It's that I genuinely feel that there's more compassion since lockdown. I genuinely feel, as you've just said, that we're talking about it more. So people who may never have talked about it before are now talking about it. You know, you actually will say to people, you know, how have you found lockdown? How are you coping? And I think people are much less likely at the moment, or seem less likely to say what they always used to say, which is, yeah, fine, thanks, when they don't, when they're not, or they are. So maybe that's a positive, and maybe there's an increasing awareness. I hope that there's more compassion. Obviously, with confirmation bias and the right and the left and everything else, you know, there's always those extremes have gone even more extreme. You know, without wanting to be too political, you can imagine to whom I might be referring. But in the middle bit, maybe the slightly left and the slightly right, maybe we are coming a bit together. And even, dare I say, you know, even Boris and the Conservative government, you know, maybe they even took some decisions which they would never have done in the past. And whether they were fueled by an increase in compassion or whether they were fueled by the fact that Boris had it and therefore suddenly realised, oh, actually, you know, the decisions we make at the top actually do hurt people or benefit them. And like I say, I'm not making political statements, but things have been changed, and maybe that's a positive thing. I don't know.
Well, I think it is a positive. I think there's, you know, one of the tools we use in coaching quite a lot is to help people think about the things that they're in control of and the things that they're not in control of. And then there's this middle ground of stuff where you can exert some influence over it. You can't guarantee the outcome, but if you do something, the positive outcome that you're looking for is more likely. And I echo that kind of that, you know, that we're not bouncing around with hope. It's a tough time. And actually, in a weird way, acknowledging the toughness of the time is one of the places that I find hope. Because a lot of people have been carrying stuff that's been really tough for years and years and years, and not given themselves permission or not being given permission by others to talk about it. And as you say, you know, one of the things that's definitely happened, no idea how long it will sustain, but is that we're, you know, mental health and poor or otherwise is being talked about. You know, it's okay. You've never had a greater opportunity to be honest with your friends and family that you're having a tough day, month, year, decade, even, you know, because there's lots of external factors that people who might not have naturally understood or had any empathy with, now they do. You know, that even if everyone's feeling fine, they understand that not everyone's feeling fine, and so that it's okay. You're less likely to be judged for going, I'm not coping very well, or I'm not sure I'm coping. And then the other thing I would say as a coach is, you know, you've already got through tough things. I'm not trying to downplay the toughness of now, the reality, the economic pressures, societal pressures, family pressures, everything that we've mentioned, and 101 other things we haven't, but that all of us have gone through tough times before, and we are still here. We've got some internal resilience, and so it's building on. And I want to echo again what you said. It's that thing of going, if I can take a step, I'll take a step. If I can't take a step, I won't take a step. But find something that you're in control of. You go to the gym, you have a walk, you get some sunshine, whatever it is that you can do. It might be really, really, really tiny and feel not significant at all, but the impact of it is increased endorphins, increased mental well-being, giving you just that little bit more resilience to cope with things in the future. Ashley, it's been a fantastic conversation, and like all of these conversations, I want to keep chatting.
Me too, yeah.
Skim the surface of it, but for now we have run out of time. So Ashley House, you've been a star. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.